Yo, what is up, everybody? Popo here bringing guys a new video, and today we're going to be doing a Regulation G restricted tier list. Let's go. Welcome everybody, and today we're going to be doing a Regulation G restricted tier list since it is only a couple of weeks away from coming back. We see a lot of people already going onto casual ladder and battling it out. Personally, not a big fan of Regulation G, but what can we do? It's coming back. First time they've ever returned a format like this, so it's really interesting. It's going to be really cool to see how the meta has evolved in between World and the return of Regulation G. With that Regulation H, we're going to see if any of those Pokemon maybe sneak in. A lot of people are talking about Sneasler, though I have to strongly disagree that Sneasler will make that transition, but who knows? Who knows? We will have to see. But yeah, so let's get right into it. There aren't that many Pokemon, and on Friday I'm actually going to do the full list, so if you're not subscribed, make sure you guys do so you don't miss that video. Yeah, I kind of shuffled these up. I'll shuffle them up a little bit more. Not that one, because we're going to talk about that one first. I kind of shuffled these up. This needs to stay back here. And, yeah, so it's a little bit random. But first, we're going to talk about Miraidon. Now, if you guys remember back to not only my tier list, but a ton of people's tier list, they actually have Miraidon, like, B. Everybody thought Miraidon was okay. It's really fast. It hits pretty hard, but it doesn't really do too much other than that, right? We've had a restricted Pokemon that's been the same typing, Dragon Electric, in the past. Is not very good, considered probably one of the worst, if not the worst restricted Pokemon. It's not the worst, but Miraidon, on the other hand, is now an S Pokemon. We can't deny this. It won the first regional with the format of Regulation G, and it won the World Championship, so kind of sandwiched in between there. It had some really good results as well. So very good Pokemon, a very underrated Pokemon at first, but now I think people really do see the power of it, and it's going to be cool to see if those teams actually evolve, or we're just going to see a continuation of what won Worlds. Next we have base form Necrozma. It's pretty bad. You're probably not going to use this. If you're going to do it, you're going to do Dawn Wings, or you're going to do Duskmane. So, yeah, not good. Okay, so Zamazenta. I'm still a huge fan of Zamazenta. I think in a double restricted format, Zamazenta and Miraidon are going to get even better. And the best part about that is I think they're going to be on the same team. I think they pair really well together. So whenever that next regulation where they're double restricted, probably the next one after this one, and it's going to be the Worlds format, will contain both of these as huge threats. But Zamazenta right now, it's super bulky. It puts a lot of pressure on quite a few Pokemon, not so much the restricteds, but the support Pokemon and the Pokemon around the restricteds. It's really good into Flutter Mane, which is a huge advantage to it. Sometimes it's forcing those Flutter Manes to have to terrestrialize, and it's pretty good against Incineroar because the Intimidate doesn't really affect him as he's going for the body presses. And those body presses one-shot the Incineroars, sometimes forcing terrestrializations out of them as well. Reshiram's not that good, or Reshiram. Kyurem White's not that good. I had Reshiram in my head because it was just like the combination. It's not that good. It does have a pretty good special attacking stat, and it can output a lot of damage, but it's kind of inconsistent on what it does. And you kind of have to run another ice type so you can set up those hails. And if you had another way to set up the hail, maybe you can run it on a Prankstermon like Tornadus, but then you're kind of just wasting your turn trying to set the hail up so you can click Blizzard. It just kind of feels meh because of those situations, but it can output a lot of damage, like I said, and it's actually pretty good against Zamazenta because it does get a really strong fire move, and with Terra Fire, which is normally what you're going to beat anyways, you can take one-shots off of Zamazenta. Though it's not super great into Miraidon. It's just kind of slow too. So Galapagos, I'm going to put Galapagos in A. I think it will have a resurgence, especially at the beginning of the format, as people have kind of forgotten maybe how to deal with it. more, whereas they're going to be focusing on Miraidon and a couple of the other ones. This might be able to sneak through. I think it's going to be worse than Zamazenta, but I still think it's really, really good, and it puts a lot of pressure on a lot of teams. Oh, what the heck just happened here? Oh, okay. Uh, never seen that happen. But yeah, so oh, is that so I can move up and down and then you can do... I don't like that though. I don't like that. Do you guys like that? I don't like that. That's a new feature. I accidentally clicked it. But yeah, so I think it's pretty good. It just does a ton of damage. We'll see if maybe the leftovers version, or if it's going to be the choice specs version, or maybe something in between. It'll be really cool to see which one it ends up being. But I think we could see some... we saw a little glimpse of it, was like Smeargle would decorate with it, which maybe we might see a little bit more of that going into the format early on, especially on ladder. That might be a big surprise candidate for ladder. Karen Black is pretty bad. I thought about here, but I'm going to put it here just because of how much damage it outputs, though you do have to run like Amulet on it, or else it's just going to be getting stat drops all the time, and it just kind of feels really bad. But it can output some damage. Its move pool is meh. So, yeah. Lugia, I think Lugia is a C. I think it's much better than these. I think it's closer to B, and I might be biased here because Lugia is one of my favorite restricted Pokemon, but I think it's actually really, really good with Calm Mind. It feels really, really strong. I used it on a Muck team. I know. There's a short about that, where, you know, I was able to take those boosts from the Muck and put them onto my Lugia. And the best part about Lugia doing that is that it survives hits, even super effective hits, from anything that's basically not Miraidon. And it gets Earth Power, so you can run Terra Ground to pair up with it, because there's no Ice attack in the whole game that's one-shotting this thing. So, yeah, you can kind of take that and do something with it. It's not the greatest against either of the Calyrexes, but, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Solgaleo, I think Solgaleo is C. I thought Solgaleo would be better going into this format, but it just really hasn't shown out. It hasn't really had any results. I thought maybe Weakness Policy would be really strong with it. With a Bulldoze, there's a couple of really fast Pokemon that get Bulldoze that could maybe be proccing that. Maybe you might see some of this on ladder, but not very good. Lunala, I think Lunala is a high B. This is a Pokemon I use a lot in these restricted formats. I just really like the way it plays. It really fits my play style. If you go and watch my video where I faced a top 16 regional player, I was able to use this Pokemon and be successful with it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And that team was really, really fun. Of course, it was Lilycole, but the main Pokemon you're using is that Lunala. Primal, Palkia. I thought these Primals would be better, but I think it's probably pretty bad. It's probably around here. I think Palkia is just better. In a double restricted format, we might see a little bit more usage out of this Pokemon. I definitely think we'll see a lot of usage out of Palkia. If you look back to Sword and Shield, Palkia was used pretty frequently in some of these Trick Room teams, as it is a super bulky Trick Room setter that doesn't have the same weaknesses that most Trick Room setters have. So it's able to take advantage of that and really put pressure on a couple of the Pokemon like Groudon if you can get the rain up, or, you know, under some certain situations it can put some pressure on like Miraidon too, because it's not hit super effective, and since it's so bulky, you're able to take those attacks. Primal Dialga is much better. I think Primal Dialga is... I'm going to put it under Lugia because I think Lugia is better. But it kind of does the same thing, and it's just a bulkier version of the Primal Palkia. And yeah, it gets a couple of better moves. So and you don't have to rely on like Hydro Pump, which is nice. Regular Dialga. Now, I know a lot of people had like this up here, but this thing literally had no results. I saw some people putting it here, and then Dialga was like D. But I think they're pretty comparable. I don't really see that big of a difference to whereas you're losing anything from going to the new form, and you're not really gaining anything from going to the new form either. It's kind of a weird place. Rayquaza is probably high C tier because it can do some stuff, but Dragonite is so relevant that it kind of makes this Pokemon not feel as good because you're kind of doing the same thing. Dragon Ascent is really, really strong, but if you're not clicking Dragon Ascent, you're probably clicking the Extreme Speed, and you might be Choice Banded, or you gotta be Focus Sashed. It's not good against either of the Caly-Rexes, so that's a huge disadvantage to it too. But if you go Terra Normal, then you're decently good against Calyrex Shadow Rider, but there's gonna be fairy ones, right? So I wouldn't expect it to be doing too well. And against Calyrex Ice Rider, it just kind of gets one shot either way. Ho-Oh is pretty bad, though I think it's better than these. This might be up here, actually. But Ho-Oh, it just gets intimidated. Its attack stat's not that great. It's pretty bulky, and Sacred Fire is always good. But I just feel like you could just use Entei and not take that restricted spot. Maybe in a double restricted format, this Pokemon might be a little bit more relevant. But in the single restricted format that we have, I just don't really see it performing too well. You got to invest a lot into making it work. And if you run out of PP on Sacred Fire, you're kind of just clicking Brave Bird, which doesn't feel the best a lot of the times. Naked Zamazenta. I think Naked Zamazenta will actually be around here in a double restricted format, but for right now, it is a D tier. I think we could see some usage. It can hold that Assault Vest while also getting that defense boost. It's fast. It's super fast. So you could take advantage of that, but a lot of the Flutter mains now are running Booster Energy Speed just to deal with the Miraidons. So the speed might not really matter. You do lose that neutral to Flutter main, though you do lose your weakness to a couple of Pokemon like any of the fire types, and also that Urshifu with the close combat. So you gain a little bit from that, but you're not really gaining enough to make it super relevant right now. But I think these two together are going to be very good going into double restricted. Kyogre. I think Kyogre is a mid B. Yes, it can output a lot of damage. It's predictable. It's just kind of meh. It hasn't really had the results that a lot of people thought. I always had it as a meh Pokemon. I did put it at S tier in my first tier list. Okay, I'll admit it. That's only because I love Kyogre and I wish it was S tier. But I'm kind of glad it's not, because then not everybody's using it and it's not as annoying. So, yeah, B tier, I think it's decent. I think it can output a lot of damage. You have to pair it with certain Pokemon, which is a disadvantage to it. But it's good into Incineroar, which is always good. Naked Zacian is terrible. Groudon, I think Groudon also is a B tier. Yeah, I think it's worse than Kyogre, only because of the fact that it can miss. We did see some gravity being used with it, especially on ladder, where it was able to hit those Precipice Blades no matter what, which was really nice. But it's just kind of meh. It can get intimidated, so you have to run Clear Amulet, which is fine, but then it's just losing some damage output against certain teams, especially if they don't bring the Incineroar or they don't bring Landorus or whatever it miit be, though Landorus I is better than Landorus T nowadays. But it just has really lost a lot of that luster. In a double restricted format, this Pokemon might also be very good, especially paired once again with that Miraidon, because you're not really sharing any weaknesses besides Ice. Terrasilize out of that and you're getting advantage. One of the weaknesses that we see a lot of the times on that Groudon is it gets slept via Amoonguss. So being able to set up that terrain and prevent him from being put to sleep is going to be very significant, I think. And you can still use Flutter Mane, which pairs very well with both of them too. So I think in a double restricted format, Groudon will probably be like an A, but for right now, he is a mid B. We have Dawnwings. I think Dawnwings is just strictly worse than Lunala, even though it's kind of... You would think it was better because it has better stats, but I really do like Lunala a lot better. I think its ability is 10 times better. I think everybody thinks its ability is 10 times better. Yeah, it outputs a lot less damage, but I just feel like Lunala has a lot more going for it than Dawn Wings does. I'm just a bigger fan of it, but these are interchangeable. Honestly, you could use them in either order. I guess it just comes down to preference because you're gonna be clicking pretty much the same moves. Palkia, I'm gonna put it a little bit higher. I'm gonna put it up here once again for those reasons I said. It's better Trick Room setter. It's just with the item, it's better. You can run Citrus Berry, so you could do a couple of more things with it. So if you guys remember back, Showdown Ladder actually had Giratina at top at one point. But this Pokemon's actually terrible. It just doesn't have the damage output, and it's really, really bulky, but not in a good way, and you don't have another restricted to help with it. Maybe in a double restricted format, this will be bottom of C tier and just barely usable, but for now, nah. Reshiram, I think Reshiram is pretty bad, but it's probably better than Ho-Oh, honestly. Just use Kyurem White, I think. I don't think there's a reason to use just straight Reshiram unless you want that Fire Dragon type, which I'm trying to think if it's good against anything. Maybe just Ice attacks, but Ice isn't super relevant unless you're facing up against Calyrex Ice Rider, so then, you know, but it's neutral to this anyways because this is also Ice. So I guess it doesn't matter. This guy's terrible. He's up here, honestly. Zekrom is just awful. He's never been good, I don't think, that I can remember anyways. Like, he's just bad. He's just bad. Zacian. I can't disrespect Zacian too much, though. I do think it's pretty bad. It's had one or two okay-ish results, but no, I don't like Zacian. I said at the beginning of this game that Zamazenta was going to be better than Zacian, and people laughed at me. Like, literally, I had people laugh at me when I said that, and here we are. It's just so much better than this right now, especially with the nerfs to this, and then it can just get intimidated, and basically it had no ability, so it's just really bad. Regular Kyurem is, I guess he's better than that. Mewtwo is awful. I'll put him up here, though, because some people have made it work, and people really like Mewtwo, so they'll always try. We have Duskmane. Duskmane is probably better than Solgaleo in this game, just because it's slower, so you can set up Trick Room and take more advantage of it. And it can have its speed dropped, but that also means you have to probably run Clear Amulet, so actually it's probably less. Eternatus. I think Eternatus is actually pretty good. I don't think it's better than Lunala. I think it's near the end of the regulation. It started to be explored a little bit more, and I think some people who were enjoying using it and were doing pretty well using it will go back and take a look at this Pokemon again, and maybe it will perform very well and could jump up to A. It has the stats and the typing to really propel itself, especially with Groudon not being used as much. This Pokemon just seems a lot better. It resists everything basically that Miraidon's doing, especially with a Fairy Terra. Then you really have a really good matchup into that Miraidon. Koraidon. I think Koraidon is still very good. I'm even gonna put it here. I just still think that it's so good, and just people haven't really figured out how to use it properly yet. So, yeah, I think we'll see a lot of it, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on the meta, and you have to have something for the sun. It's going to be rough. It's going to be interesting to see if the conversion rate of Pelipper Archludon comes into the format too, because it's not really something we saw in the previous time Regulation G was around, and it's something that really picked up at the beginning of Regulation H and just kind of stayed around. So it'll be cool to see if that kind of starts getting implemented. We did see near the end Pelippers being used, and the Archludons were kind of around every so often, but you were more just setting up the rain to stop like Koraidons and Torkoals and stuff. Okay. Next we have the two Calyrexes, and these are the last two Pokemon. I'll talk about Ice first. I think both of these are S tier Pokemon. I think that you have to have something to deal with both of these. So like S is going to definitely be, you have to have something on your team that helps you deal with the matchup that these go into. A is going to be like, if you have something as an outlier that helps you deal with them, fantastic. B is like, maybe you don't need to have something specific to deal with them, but some of the stuff that deals with the top ones definitely deal with these. And then C is like, you might get surprised. So you could probably take care of it just by playing better and having better Pokemon. But so Ice Rider is very, very good. Its move is super, super strong. It's always going to run that Clear Amulet, Fire Terra, or Water Terra. We have seen a little bit of that. And it's just going to probably click Trick Room and then Glacial Lance, and you better hope your Pokemon don't get knocked out. Incineroar is very good against this Pokemon, especially with Knockoff. Knockoff Parting Shot is a really strong option. And yeah, we'll see if people go for that, especially if they're using a Moongus next to this, because we have seen a lot of that. Incineroar is really good against both of them because it has the safety goggles, plus your fire type, and even if this had a psychic attack, it doesn't really hit Incineroar, though they can go for the high horsepower, which does pretty good damage, especially if you get a +1. But after a knockoff Parting Shot, it's not going to really be too much of a threat. But yeah, you have to have something to deal with this. Out of these Pokemon, Zamazenta is the best strictly to deal with this. If you can get one Iron Defense off, you could start just like walling this and body pressing it. And if you have like Sinistcha or another healing Pokemon and just keeping your Zamazenta healthy, you're doing pretty good. But next is Calyrex, and Calyrex is very, 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 very strong. This Pokemon just feels so unfair a lot of the times you're facing it. And it would be fine if it could just stay its base type. And if you have a way to force your opponent to terrestrialize it, you're doing pretty good. But its results haven't really come just because, and this is, I want to stress this, it might not have the results like some of the other Pokemon I was talking about, like maybe Kyogre and, you know, a lot of these Pokemon, right? They don't have the results. But the reason why this is still S tier is because every single team has to have something to deal with it. And that makes you an S tier Pokemon, because if you're running a team and you don't have a way to deal with it, you just lose the game. So if this thing gets going, it gets one knockout, it's pretty much over for your team. They're running Fairy Terra nowadays. We saw people like Wolf Click actually using Ghost Terra just to get more damage out of it, which is horrifying. And a lot of the times they're using that Focus Sash so you can't be one-shot, and that could get the ball rolling, especially if maybe your team only has one way to deal with something and it gets knocked out and this gets a boost. Now it's just over and it snowballs. It's a win more ability that these Pokemon have, which makes it really hard, especially stopping eating the berries, which is very, very strong. Galapagos is very good into this, though, especially the Combine variants, as even if they go for the Fairy Terra, they're not going to be doing any damage into it. And if they go for that Terra anyways, then they're going to be weak to the Terra Storm. I can't remember the name of it now, but they're going to be weak to it, and it's going to do a ton of damage. And in one shot it, but they can never hit you with the Astro Barrage, which is really nice. I would like to see that more people will be running normal Terra, especially that Goldango set that we were seeing during Worlds. That was a really good counter to the Calyrexes. So because it forces them it makes them so they can't actually terrestrialize, but they also can't hit you with the Astro Barrage. So Goldango is just sitting there eating attacks. So it's a really, really cool tech and something very simple to stop a whole Pokemon. And it's also good against Calyrex Ice Rider too, because you don't even have to terrestrialize and you already put a ton of pressure onto it with that Make It Rain. So yeah. This is my tier list. Of course, these are terrible. I mean, if you want to use them, go ahead. But they're not doing anything. They're literally not doing anything. 2 of them. So yeah, that's my tier list. Let me know what your guys' tier lists are, or what Pokemon you're most excited to use going into the new format. Like I said, Friday we will have the full list, so the non-restricted Pokemon in the format. We will be doing that. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, make sure you guys thumbs it up. If you're not subscribed, make sure you guys do so. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everybody.